Elden Ring's DLC Shadow of the Erdtree is finally here, and it has a lot of boss fights. It's got the boss baby, a woman who is literally 2 bugs, generic standard issue naked crawling guy, and even a stack of dudes in a costume. But what it doesn't have is a list of tiers, so join me in this video as I assemble a list of tiers and jam these boss fights into it. Romina is millennia, but if she wasn't absolutely cooked, she doesn't regain health when she hits you, but she does apply Scarlet Rot. Finally, we can just kick back and be tortured by the worst status effect, without having to worry about the boss regenerating health. Romina is what we who come from the streets refer to as kawaii. She is really big on the butterflies. It is less crazy town and more smile.dk. Romina has that Eurodance energy. You just know she had one song really pop off, in a country that doesn't even understand her language. I mean, just look at her design. She is literally 2 bugs. That is the exact kind of visual you would see in a 90s Eurodance CGI music video. It is simultaneously repulsive and intoxicating. In a way, Romina feels like a predecessor to Quelaag. Quelaag has that kind of MySpace emo band frontwoman aesthetic that came about partly in reaction to Romina's place in the Eurodance movement. Most of Romina's moveset feels fair, and it is possible to avoid some of her attacks by positioning yourself correctly. I also really enjoy her diving attack. It leads to a really tense moment while you anticipate it. Unfortunately, the Scarlet Rot part of her fight is barely noticeable. Usually she will take you out before you even have time to build it up. Off the top of my head, I think she only has one move that significantly builds up the status effect, which is a grab attack that I did not encounter often. I feel like if they wanted to make this fight harder without making it worse, they probably could have given her more ways of afflicting you with Scarlet Rot. But also, it's not like we necessarily want this fight to be harder. I think it's in a good place. Based on her fight and her brief Eurodance career, which had the chart-topping smash hit titled "This Lady Literally Has 2 Bugs, 4 Legs," I've got to give her a B rank. Metyr, Mother of Fingers, has the most out there design of all the bosses. Metyr is all fingers, no palm, whatever that means. Most of her moves involve her flailing around, like someone who can totally quit anytime bro looking for their vape. It's very erratic and unpredictable. Sometimes she will just slam her head into the ground, instantly giving herself a concussion. Other times she will do it 3 times in a row, instantly giving herself 3 concussions, and you won. This is why the boss is great, not because it gives you permanent irreparable brain damage, but because it is irreparable brain damage. It's the ultimate troll boss. She has noticeably less health than the other bosses in the DLC, which makes you play riskier and try to attack her during unsafe windows, because there is that voice in the back of your mind telling you that you only need to get a few more hits in. However, because her attacks can be so unpredictable and fast, you can quickly get caught out in a window you assumed was safe, because you didn't actually wait to see if she would begin another animation. Other boss fights don't have this. They all have much more health, so you immediately know that risky attacks are not worth it. And if you do take a risk that fails, you don't get knocked onto the ground. Most of Metyr's attacks will absolutely lay you out, as if you are that really lanky guy in every single online fight video, which makes you lose your tempo, which makes you take more risks, which makes her give you a concussion. That is why Metyr is the embodiment of irreparable brain damage. The arena itself seems quite abstract, with the hollow tubes descending from the ceiling. Not only does this recontextualize the fingers above ground as being hollow, but it also implies through the environment that she is controlling all of the fingers, as if she is wearing their hollow forms. Of course, this is clearly spelled out in some item descriptions, but it's really cool that they symbolically integrated it into the arena. For all of these reasons, I have to give your mother an A ranking. Commander Gaius sucks. Picture this, if you will. You have just fought through the Shadow Keep, finding an alternate exit which takes you to this wide open field, the closest you have been to the Scadutree so far. You bask in its beauteous radiance, only to get jumped by this literal who, this absolute nobody and his ridiculous dog. This will happen again and again, because every time you enter the fight, he begins it with the same charging move. You can dodge it, but it's so awkward to do consistently, and sometimes when you dodge it, you'll still get damaged anyway. You can also ride Torrent to get out of its way, but that isn't always successful. He constantly moves away from you, making it painful just to get one hit in. Pretty much all of his moves have really awkward dodge timings, and you can't really run away from him either. You are a school crossing, and Gaius is late for his appointment to get his nails did. Of course you could ride Torrent, but then you can't dodge any of his attacks, so naturally it feels like the boss fight was designed with the idea of you using a summon. That way you can have something to take the heat off your back. However, remember when I said he attacks you with a charge right off the bat? This means you can't summon straight away, and he constantly applies pressure to you, making it hard for you to find space so you can summon. So it feels like the boss was designed to be fought with the summon, but also to stop you from actually summoning anything. Feel free to hit me with a mad cos bad on this one. I wouldn't be surprised if he feels better to fight with a light equip load, but I can't equip lighter armor. I have to maintain my branding. I am trapped by the chains of marketing. I am ranking him D. Naked guys with really big weapons are a core part of From Software games. Midra is the epitome of this concept. He lives in this ruined, abandoned hellhole. As you walk through it, you can see a distant, malnourished figure screaming through an open door. This is the kind of thing that happens when it's like 1 AM at a party and you agree to go back to someone else's place, but it takes ages to get there. It exists in that foreboding, transient area between the city and the suburban. It's a complete dump, and for some reason, there is a random naked malnourished guy screaming in an empty room. This is the energy that Midra captures. When you enter the arena, you see this poorly creature who appears to be in extreme pain. Naturally, you help them by beating the life out of them. This further humiliation causes him to give into his true nature, to reveal his true power level, and unleash the naked guy with a really big weapon inside of him. This fight is really good. All of his attacks feel great. There are no moves with frustrating hitboxes. Some of his attacks will build up madness, which can make the fight really tense in a fun way, because you are always on the edge of gaining just a bit too much, and getting deranged images beamed directly into your brain. His animations are very graceful. There is a sense of tranquility to this fight. Even though it is supposed to be about chaos and madness, it reinforces the relief that Midra must feel within the narrative when he stops enduring and embraces the frenzied flame. I think the best way to fight him is to embrace it. Don't wear any armor, use a really big weapon, and just go full me smash, just like Midra. Unfortunately, I could not do this. I was still bound by the chains of my branding. However, despite this, I still really enjoyed this fight. Midra is far from mid. He is S tier. Bayle the Dread doesn't have a remembrance, even though it feels like he really should. You even get assigned your own personal hype man for the fight. If you complete Igon's questline, he will be there to gas you up at the start of every attempt. He is very intense, to say the least. If only you could summon Igon to hype you up when you are doing something boring, like that absolutely demonic heart piece in the Minish Cap, or being trapped in an endless dark mall that simultaneously exists in a superposition between dream and nightmare, where you are endlessly forced to wander, unsure if this is penance for your many sins, or just a stop on the way to your final destination. Bayle's design is so interesting. His wings were ripped to shreds in his battle with Placidusax, so he slams the exposed pieces of bone into the ground as an attack. He is even missing a leg, so he uses his tail to support his body. It really paints this picture of this immense beast consumed by immeasurable rage that fights through the pain of its many injuries. But the most interesting aspect of his design is that it answers a question about Placidusax. In the base game, a lot of people wondered why Placidusax was missing 2 heads. It was assumed that maybe he lost them in battle against one of Marika's goons, much like what Drake's goons will do to you if you go to Toronto and don't pay respect to your champagne papi. However, if you look closely, you can actually see Placidusax's heads still clamped onto Bayle's body. This is why Bayle is kinda freaky. During this extremely cool looking cinematic move, Bayle grows wings using some kind of magic and flies around. So why doesn't Bayle just grow an arm and remove Placidusax's heads from his neck? It is simple. Bayle the Freak didn't actually have a normal battle with Placidusax. In fact, it was more of a situationship. Placidusax did not enjoy how freaky Bayle could be when it came time for the Fade to Black bang cutscene, so they divorced. But Bayle could not accept this and they fought. Now Bayle actively chooses to wear Placidusax's heads as a form of some weird relationship trophy, and Placidusax is posted up outside of time because Bayle would not respect that restraining order. That's canon, it's in the lore. This fight truly exemplifies From Software's amazing world building, so I gotta give it a B. Sunflowers are kind of cool, therefore giant sunflowers that can kill you are even cooler. The Scadutree Avatar is the edgier older brother of the Erdtree Avatars. As a result, it has some very alternative moves, like annoying brambles that are hard to dodge, slamming into you like a van with a cut brake line, or the good old hydraulic press. Something else you will notice is that this boss has barely any health, so you get a sneaking suspicion, and yep, there it is. It comes back to life. Now the thing is, when this happened for the first time, I immediately knew it was going to come back to life a second time. There is no way they were just going to redo the Guardian Ape. Everything is turned up to 11 in this DLC. Of course, Miyazaki was going to take it a step further, and that's exactly what they did. This boss has 3 phases, each one harder than the last. It has this very precious move during its 3rd phase, where it poses like the Scadutree. It is just a really funny move. It is taking the time to serve tree while killing you. This is the end game of those cozy farming games. Giant unkillable sunflowers that kill people. So if you think about it, Elden Ring is naturally the ultimate cozy farming game. You can harvest your plants. You can sell the fruit of your labor to various traveling merchants. You can meet and romance various NPCs, culminating in Fade to Black bang cutscenes. And of course, you can fight giant unkillable sunflowers that kill people. I've seen quite a few people dislike this piss-infused sunflower, but I think it's pretty neat. I have to give it a B. Rellana has a reputation for being really hard. She or the Divine Beast are the first remembrance bosses most players will encounter. As a result, I feel most people perceive her as hard, when in reality, she simply serves a purpose that Margit did in the base game, basically completely destroying the player. Margit used the power of urine, while Rellana uses the power of blue Gatorade. Both of these defeats let the player know that maybe they should go explore the world, and come back a bit stronger. Just like Margit and Stormveil, you can even skip Rellana's entire zone if you find her too hard. In my first playthrough of the DLC, I unintentionally ended up skipping her entire castle without even meeting her. Of course, when I came back, she still completely drowned me in blue Gatorade. However, when I learned her fight, I ended up really enjoying it. I came to love the flavor simply known as blue, the flavor that does not equate to any real-life fruit like most other drinks. It just tastes like blue. My favorite types of fights are the ones that feel more like duels. This fight very much feels like that. However, there really isn't much more to say about Rellana. She just kinda stands there and does her Pontiff Sullivan thing. Rellana feels completely unremarkable. Even though her fight is fun, she is just kind of painfully average as a human being. For example, Rellana is Renala's sister. Her name is an off-brand version of Renala's. Her magic is an off-brand version of Renala's. Her entire existence is an off-brand version of Renala's. Look, we've learnt about the many downfalls of branding, but maybe Rellana could really use some kind of ghoulish marketing consultant to curate her image, completely subsume her individual individuality and synthesize a more appealing existence for the masses. As it stands, even though I really enjoyed her fight, I have to give her a C. The Putrescent Knight sounds like a progressive rock album from the 70s that only 10 people listen to, and it kind of is, in the sense that it's rotting in the basement of a chain-smoking boomer. On your way down, you have to travel across these massive discarded cigarette packs, dripping in tar from those anti-smoking ads. Then you get to jump all the way down to the basement, where you meet the Putrescent Knight. It has a really unique design. The knight rides on this pale, ghostly nicotine horse that melts into tar. The knight itself appears to be some kind of twisted skeletal creature. At first you might assume it's related to Estelle, as they do have a similar design, but in no world could Estelle's lungs keep up with this guy. Estelle merely inhales. The knight sucks. Our lungs also cannot keep up with the knight. The main problem with the knight is that you really don't get many windows to hit it. It tends to attack you then immediately ride away, causing you to constantly miss and to run after it on your much weaker lungs. We simply do not have the lung capacity for this. It reminds me of the Elden Beast, which would constantly teleport away. They both have a similar problem where it feels like you really should be able to use torrent during the fight. This was even patched into the Elden Beast fight with the release of the DLC. However, unlike the Elden Beast, outside of that issue, the Putrescent Knight is actually a good fight. It has some really fun moves, especially the one where it just kinda goes crazy and you have to dodge it, while also avoiding the pale spectre of nicotine addiction. The Putrescent Knight is a good fight. It's B tier. Messmer is easily the most hyped boss fight in the DLC. He was present in the trailers, and you can see the calamitous effects of his army in the lead up to his dungeon. His fight definitely delivers on this hype. The first phase is a straightforward duel. He will use a giant sharp stick to poke you. This will naturally hurt. He can also use the power of flames. This will naturally hurt. There isn't much to say about this first phase. It is just a good normal fight. The second phase is where he really begins to cook. It turns out he literally has snakes inside of him, and they aren't ordinary snakes. They are mysterious snakes. As a result, his design for the second phase is really interesting. For example, releasing the snake inside of him has had a massive toll on his body, but also when he turns into the giant snake, you can see it's missing an eye just like he is, and if you pause it at the right time, you can see that the inside of the snake is covered in eyes. Rykard wishes his snake was this mysterious. His snake isn't mysterious at all. We know it consumes gods. It's called the God-devouring serpent. On the other hand, Messmer's snake is just the abyssal serpent, which sounds strange and thought-provoking. The good thing is, Messmer doesn't do that cringe thing Rykard did, where he speaks like he has a mouth full of meat. Like, we get it, Rykard. You have some incredibly weird complex. Please stop making it weirder than it already is. Messmer's second phase does have this one frustrating move, where he summons 3 snakes to attack you. It feels like it doesn't give you enough time to get out of the way of his transformation, so you just get knocked around and aren't ready to dodge the first snake in time. Then again, maybe I am just mad cause bad. You also get to summon Hornsent for the fight as part of his quest. He has some fun unique dialogue, and if you don't summon him, he gets kind of bummed out. You wouldn't want to hurt this poor little fella's feelings, so make sure you summon him. I think Messmer is a good fight. I'm going to give him an A. The Divine Beast Dancing Lion is inspired by real-life lion dancers. It is literally just a stack of dudes in a costume. You can see this clearly during the cutscene, and it really comes through during some of the attack animations. It's safe to say that in real life, most people only get to fight a stack of dudes in a costume once or twice, and I feel like this battle is fairly accurate to that common human experience. However, Elden Ring puts a fun spin on this normal scenario. This stack of dudes in a costume can use the power of the elements. It is really cinematic when it flies up and cools down lightning with a roar. It will even make it start raining in the arena, which I didn't even notice until I went back and watched the footage. However, despite not realizing this at the time, it still contributed to the stormy atmosphere on a more subconscious level. It simply makes the fight way more intense. When it activates activates the wind element, the arena becomes very dusty and small rocks swirl around because of the very strong winds, so make sure that your kid hasn't climbed into a UFO-shaped balloon for some reason. The ice element's effect is far more noticeable. As you would expect, it makes it snowy. However, due to poor health and safety regulations, this special effect was achieved using asbestos particles, so maybe hold your breath. All of these element changes make for a very interesting fight, because each time it changes element, it is equivalent to when a boss enters a second phase, which usually also changes the atmosphere of the fight and their moveset. The big difference is that the Divine Beast just keeps cycling through all of them. The Divine Beast has a similar problem to Rellana, where most players will encounter it quite early on, before they have obtained enough Scadutree fragments, so they'll be quite weak, and as a result find this stack of dudes in a costume to be quite hard. However, once you have explored more and become stronger, this boss actually feels really fair. So it performs the same role as Rellana, but with a lot more personality, a far more interesting design, and an incredibly atmospheric arena. I have to give this stack of dudes in a costume an A. The last boss of the DLC has been the most controversial, and I mean, it is a little disappointing. It's that guy you already fought, but if he didn't ride a comically small horse. I feel like design-wise, if you take out something comically small, it always ends up being worse. So they tried to fix this by adding a comically small child on his back for the second phase, but it just doesn't work as well. What I like most about boss fights in these games is that we get to meet a new character with a cool design and learn about them. However, as it is, the fight with Radahn doesn't really give me any of that. It's literally just the same but brand new. A lot of people have been saying that they would have preferred to fight Godwyn or the Glowmite Queen, but I don't think those would have been the best choice. Godwyn is supposed to be completely dead, and within the narrative serves as an explanation for the existence of those who live in death. He doesn't really feel like a force in the lands between anymore. And with mysterious characters like the Glowmite Queen, we don't really need to know more about them. They are just part of the history of the world. It's okay for them to exist in the background. Personally, I think the idea behind this fight is fine, but it should be slightly different. I would keep both phases of the fight as they are. But when you defeat Radahn, I think there should be a third phase, where you fight a powered up form of Miquella after he ascends to being a god like Marika. So I guess because he is the boss baby, he becomes Alec Baldwin or something? The figure in the cocoon seems quite big, so maybe his final form could be of a similar size, like a giant Alec Baldwin. I think that would be a far more satisfying conclusion to the DLC, without swerving the story in a weird direction at the last second. I also find the fight by itself to be quite boring, and it's not because of the difficulty. Rather, the boring part of the fight is Radahn's long combos. For the most part, I don't think fights in Elden Ring are turn-based, as in, you wait for them to finish their combo, then you do your combo, and so on. Most fights allow you to mix it up a bit if you are smart about positioning, or give yourself an interesting loadout, like exploiting an elemental weakness, building up stagger, or using a unique Ash of War. This keeps the boss fights engaging. However, in Radahn's fight, you can't really do that, and his combos are really long, so you just kind of have to sit there dodging for ages before you get a chance to hit him once, or take a sip from your juice box. It's just incredibly boring. A cool part about this fight is that if you summon Thiolier and Ansbach, they will have unique voice lines, kind of like Igon, but if he was the kid that reminded the teacher you have homework. They increase Radahn's health by quite a bit, and they die very quickly, so it feels like a bad idea to use them, even though they make the fight more entertaining, which just adds further disappointment. For the second phase, Radahn enters Piss mode. It's a lot more intense than the first phase. It also has a unique gimmick with the Miquella's grab attack, where the boss baby will pitch at you his AI-powered toilet startup, which is totally not an exit scam. I think Radahn's fight is just mid, which is kind of disappointing for the last piece of Elden Ring we'll get before a potential sequel. I've got to give him a C. Now, I'm assuming some of you have skipped to the end of this video just to see my rankings. I'm sure what you are seeing in front of you makes a lot of sense, but let's go through them anyway. In D tier we have Commander Gaius. In C tier we have Rellana and Radahn. In B tier we have Romina, Bayle, Scadutree Avatar, Avatar and the Putrescent Knight. In A tier we have Metyr, Messmer and the Divine Beast, and finally in S we have Midra. If you enjoyed this video, you should subscribe to my channel, it would look great on your resume.